Hi students, in this video we will be going over the slope-intercept form. Our essential question for today is, what is slope-intercept form and how is a graph of slope-intercept form created? So one more time, what is slope-intercept form and how is a graph of slope-intercept form created? So first let's go over what the slope-intercept form is and what it looks like. So the slope-intercept form is the equation of a straight line. So if you remember, we've been talking a lot about linear equations, and the slope-intercept form is the equation of that line that you have either drawn or you are trying to find. And it is written as this, so y equals mx plus b, where the m is equal to the slope and the b is equal to the y-intercept. So you will usually be creating an equation that looks like this, but in place of the m, for instance, you might have some number such as 2, and in place of b, maybe you have a number like 4. So then your slope-intercept form would be y equals 2x plus 4. Now, a y-intercept is a point where the line crosses the y-axis. So we've talked about that a little bit in class, but imagine the line going through the y-intercept and it goes through at a specific point, and that point is the y-intercept. And if you remember, the slope is the steepness of a line. Okay, so let's look at some examples where we find the slope and the y-intercept. So if we have this problem, we just have to think back to that form that y equals mx plus b, and which one is the slope and which one is the y-intercept. Now the number that is attached to the x, that coefficient, is our slope. So -5 is going to be our slope, and the constant, the number that is alone, is our y-intercept. So our y-intercept would be 4. And it's that easy to find the slope and the y-intercept from an equation. Let's try another one. Okay, in this case, again, the slope is going to be the number, or the coefficient, that is attached to the variable. So our slope is going to be -1/2. And our y-intercept is our constant. It is the number that is alone. So that's going to be -3. Remember, you have to take that sign with it. It's not +3, but it's -3. So take a second, and you've got a couple problems on your foldable to try, and input those into a puzzle. Okay, now let's talk about writing in slope-intercept form. And this is given the slope and the y-intercept. So it's basically the opposite of kind of what we were doing. So if we have a problem that is, or a straight line that is on a graph, what we need to do is we need to find an equation to create that is in slope-intercept form. So our first step is to find the slope. Then we have to find the y-intercept. And then we replace the variables with the numbers found in the graph. So once I find the slope, I replace the m with the slope. And once I find the y-intercept, I replace the b with the y-intercept. Now the m is going to be the slope. That is where you find points and you find the rise over run based upon those 2 points that you have chosen. And the y-intercept, again, is where the line intersects with the graph. So if you follow this line up, this is where it intersects with the x-axis, but this is the line we're focusing on, the y line, and this is where the line crosses. It crosses right at 3. So that's where our y-intercept will be. And as we start to find those, it'll be pretty easy to create the equations. Okay, so we've got the same problem from the previous slide. And let's look at the slope. The slope is the rise over run. So the easiest way to find this is by finding 2 dots that are even. And if I look right here, I can see that there's a dot here. And I can also see that there is, or not really a dot, I created the dot, but there's a point where this line crosses equally. So if you see, this is perfectly -2 and -1. If I chose this point right here, then that's going to be a problem over here, like where it's on the x-axis, because it's not an even point. But if I follow this line up, I can see that right here is where there's another even point, and it's perfectly at 0 and 3. And that really helps me with my rise over run, because what I can do then is just kind of draw my line if I want to, and then look at the rise over the run based upon that. So my rise here is going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and my run is 1 and 2. So that's 4 over 2, which then will make the slope of 2 over 1, which is just 2. Now the y-intercept is very easy because you just have to find that point where the line crosses the y-axis. And that is very easy to find because it's right here. You just follow your line all the way up until it crosses the y-axis, and then that is your y-intercept. So we can see that that is going to be 3. Now this is the part where you create the equation. The slope is 2, and that's going to replace the m, and the y-intercept is b, so that's going to replace, or the 3 is going to replace the b. And so when we plug those numbers in, the 2 has now replaced the m, and the 3 has replaced the b, and our final equation will be y equals 2x plus 3. All right, let's try another one. Okay, so again, let's find 2 points on the graph where it crosses evenly. And I see there's one right here at -3. And if I follow this line, these are not even until right about there. So if I look at this, it looks like I'm about to, for the slope, I'm going to rise 1. Okay, so I rose 1, and I move over 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is a positive slope again, so my slope is going to be 1 over 4. So that was very easy. Now the y-intercept is right where the line crosses the y-axis. So I follow my line until I see it hit the y-axis, and it hits it right at -3. So our y-intercept is -3. And now we're just going to take our slope-intercept equation and replace the numbers that we have for slope and y-intercept with the m and b. So now where the m was, I have got 1/4, and where the b was, I have -3. And that tells us our line is y equals 1/4 x minus 3. All right, let's look at another one, because this is a really important concept. So again, let's find a couple points on the graph where they cross evenly, and we can get even points. And I see there's one right here. And I'm just going to follow it down to right there, and there's another even point. So if I draw a line up, I'm trying to find my slope for first. I go up 1, 2, 3. So my rise is 3. And if I go over, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And my slope is 4. But it's important to note that this line is not a positive line. So that means our slope is going to be negative. So it will be a -3 over 4. Now we have to find the point where the line crosses with the y-axis, and that if we follow that line up, we see that it's right here at 1. So then we take our numbers and we plug them into our slope-intercept form, and our slope-intercept form, our equation, will be y equals -3 over 4x plus 1. All right, you've got 2 problems to try on your foldable. Take a second, try those problems, and input those answers into Edpuzzle. All right, now we're going to start talking about graphing in slope-intercept form. So it's kind of the opposite way, where you're going to actually graph. So how do I graph these linear equations? Now, I'm going to show you the long way, and then I'm going to show you a kind of shortcut way. So the long way is to create a table. And when you create the table, you can use whatever numbers you want. So I'm just going to add some numbers in here, maybe -1. Okay, and then when I decide that my x is going to be -1, I just plug that in to this number right here, into this equation. And so I go, okay, 2 times -1 is -2, and -2 plus 1 is a -1. And so I just go through and I start solving if I decide, and then I plot those points. So -1 and -1 falls right here. Okay, let's use 0. 0 is always an easy one to work with. Well, when I put 0 into x, 0 times 2 is 0. so I'm just left with 1. And so then I'll come over here and plot this point. And let's go up to 1, because 1's easy to work with too. 2 times 1 is just 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So I'll come over here and plot this point. And then I can go one more time and choose 2. And when I plug 2 into x, that gives me 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 1 is 5. And then I plot that point as well. And that makes a perfect straight line. And that is the long way to do it. And that is totally fine if you are comfortable with that. But that is kind of why that line works that way. Because remember, when we're creating linear equations, it's all about the relationship between the x and the y points, because it forms a coordinate. And those coordinates put together in a straight line make a slope-intercept form. Now let's say that you don't want to go through doing that table. Then I have a shortcut. And your first step is to plot the y-intercept on the graph. Okay? Then you identify the slope, and you plot your second point based upon that slope, and you draw a line. So you only have to really create 2 points. So our y-intercept is the constant. It's the number that's alone. So that is number 1. And that number is going to go on the y-intercept. And I just place it right there. And our slope is 2, or the same as 2 over 1, and it's positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 2 and over 1 and plot a point. Now that looks really ugly, so I'm actually just going to plot the point here. So I went up 2 over 1, and I draw a line, and that's it. I think that's much easier. You just have to find the y-intercept, and then you do your rise over run to find the slope, and you draw your line, and that's it. So let's look at a couple more examples of that. So plot your y-intercept, identify your slope, and plot your second point based upon that, and draw your line. So my y-intercept is the number that is by itself, so that's going to be -4. So I will come over to the graph, I will find -4 on the y line, and I will put a dot there. And then I will create my slope based upon the number that is in front of the x, so that coefficient. And this one is again positive, so I'm going to go up 1 and over 3. And I get a point right there. So I went up 1 over 3, and then I just draw a line right through it. And that's it. And let's look at one more. So again, I've got my y-intercept and my slope. So start with your y-intercept, which is a +3, so I'll come up here and put a point. But this time it is a negative slope. So I know that whatever I do, I want my slope to go in this direction. Okay, I want it to go in this direction. So I need to make sure that I draw it based upon that. So instead of going up 5 and over 1, we don't have a lot of room that direction. So let's go down 5. So down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1 in this direction. Because if I plot my point right here, based upon that, then that is going to give me a negative slope when I draw the line through it. So just be aware and make sure that your line forms the positive or negative slope. All right, you've got a couple practice problems to try. So take a couple minutes and try those problems. And that's all that you have for today. If you have any questions, let me know.